So FXM-HP, I'm not sure if you guys heard me or not, so we'll go through this quickly. So it's all about logging today. So we'll talk about the logs that are in there, and we're going to focus specifically on the data log, because that is where you can actually go in and do a lot of configuring and set things up the way that you want. So, but before we get to the data log, let's take a look at the regular logs that are in there. Just in case you probably already heard this if you heard my audio before, but you did not see the screen, which I was referring to. So, so we've got different logs in the FXM-HP, and I will use the later in the demonstration. I'll show you how to get to these, quite easy. But so we've got different logs. So the events log is one that captures general things like UPS battery mode outages, software changes, those kind of things. So general log to capture stuff. Here's the search bar then, where you can actually search. You can do page navigation, right? You can sort fields by just using the arrows, and then you can also export it to a CSV file, up to 3,000 events. Okay. Then we have the alerts log. Alerts log is alarms. So any alarm that's being triggered in the system, being caught by the FXM-HP, is going to get logged here. Okay. And then again, up to 3,000 of those. And then you can export those as well. And then here's the battery log, captures all the information on charge and discharge on your battery. Again, exportable, holds up to 3,000 events. And there's more off to the right. There's more on the web page than I'm showing here on the screen capture, but also there's more in the export than you will see on the web page. So if you really want to get the full detail, be sure to export it because there's a lot more fields that aren't being shown even on the web page. All right, then the power outage log, the ability to be able to see when your outages actually occurred. So the start time, end time, and then the duration is already pre-calculated for you. And so that holds up to 3,000 events. And you can export that out to the CSV file. All right, so a quick run through. And then here we are back to where we were. So performance logs. So these are different. These are data driven. This is things that are being monitored in the system automatically. As soon as you power up the system, performance logs are running. You don't have to do anything unless you want to go see them. Then of course you got to navigate there. But think of it as a power analyzer, but not a extreme power analyzer like you would buy specifically to analyze your power and put out in the field. We're going to sample every 2 seconds. So not like a real power analyzer, which is going to monitor like in the milliseconds, so very fast. Remember, this is a UPS. Its job is not to monitor your power, but this is an added benefit, is that we will take samples every 2 seconds. So for example, on this screen that I'm showing here, we're looking at the AC input voltage of the UPS, and then you can see it's capturing every 2 seconds. And if this was a live display, I could hover over it with my mouse and it would actually show me the value. Then it takes those seconds, those captures, and rolls up into minutes, and will show the minimum, the maximum, and the average for that minute. And then it takes the minutes, rolls those into hours, and eventually that rolls up into days. And so for every day, then you'll end up with a minimum, a maximum, and an average. And then you can export that, and that'll be 365 events, so a year's worth of information there. And it's pre-configured to capture things like AC output voltage, input voltage, output current, AC power, battery voltage, current, and much more. Also, some of our processor stuff is also captured too. So it's a quick, easy way to see what's going on without having to configure anything, okay? But, oh, and then of course you can export, like I said. But if you really want to get into it, this is where the data log comes in. So this gives you the ability then, so that you get to decide the parameters to be able to see what's going on in your system, what's actually that you want to monitor, how often you want to monitor it, when you want it to monitor. So all those parameters are totally up to you. You get to decide. And so we're going to do that today. So let's get into a little bit here. So this is what a data log looks like. Okay, so I'm showing on this sample here on the bottom, you can see I've got 5 inputs that I'm currently monitoring. AC input, output, battery voltage, AC output current, and battery current. And they're all being graphed. So I'm sampling them. I've got these sampled at every 2 seconds, and you can see what's happening there. And if you look at the yellow line, the gold line, that's my AC input voltage. And you can see that at this point here, it dropped, went all the way to 0, and then it rode at 0 for this many samples. Then we came back up. And during that time period, if you look at the blue line right here, that's our AC output voltage. And you can see that's when the inverter turned on, provided fully regulated power at 120, utility came back, and then inverter shuts down, goes to standby, but then at that point we're in line mode or buck or boost, depending on what the input voltage is. Anyway, so Datalog allows you to capture all that information. You can see what's going on. We can look at our battery voltage. You can see it dropped a little bit. That's the red line. Dropped a little bit when we're in inverter mode because we're pulling current off the battery, so the voltage is going to drop. So Datalog allows you to capture all these kind of things. And you can add up to 10 data logs. So 10 separate data logs, and each log can have up to 20 data signals, which is, I think, a lot, but we're gonna do some different examples today. I won't do up to 20 on one, but anyway, and then you get to configure, like I said, which parameter am I gonna log? How often do I wanna take that sample? Is it 2 seconds or is it longer than that? What's gonna trigger it? Am I gonna do it manually? Do I want a formula? Do I want it to monitor a voltage? What's gonna make it run? You can also do a custom data equation. We're gonna actually run one with that. We're not gonna write the equation today, but we will actually operate a data log using an equation. And then you can also set up by deadband setting, which means like if I wanna monitor EC input voltage, if the voltage changes by X amount of volts, take a sample. And we're gonna do that one today. So, all right. And then of course you can export it to CSV like everything else. Okay, so let's get into the demonstration. So we're gonna set up 3 different data logs today. I'm gonna show you how to do them, and then we're gonna actually take the output of a couple of them into a spreadsheet, and I'll show you how to work with that, right? Because, well, above me here, you've got this nice cool graph that you can see on the web page, but once you take the data out, now we've got raw data. What if you want a cool chart like this in your spreadsheet? So there's a couple tricks I wanna show you on that too, so you've got that in your back pocket. All right, so let's go over to the web page. Right, so I've got my FXM-HP running. I'm using my web browser. I've got my IP address typed in, of course, because there's no software required. You just type in your IP address, and I am now connected. So we're looking at the system, okay? And alarm area, here's our dashboard. We can see what's going on. Search, it's a quick way to navigate. But today we're gonna spend all of our time here in the logs section. So you could, of course, search for logs, but we don't need to because they're right there. So I talked about the other logs, the events and the alerts, they're right there. Battery log, power outage, data logs, and performance. So right now we're gonna focus on data logs. So let's click on that. Okay. All right, so there's gonna be multiple levels as we get into these data logs. So I'll take you through the different sections so you understand what we've got going on. So right now we're at the higher level. We're in the data logs section, excuse me, where I can have a multiple of data logs. So currently I've got 3 set up. I've got a demo data log and I've got a couple others that I was playing with, but we're gonna make a new one. We're gonna start fresh. All right, so I'm gonna do this right here, click add data log. All right, and you can see it just popped down another one now. And it came up with this number. So it's called Datalog/918. So it's just a number that it assigns to it. And we can rename it if we'd like to, which is a good idea so you can keep track of it, right? Because these two don't tell me anything, very generic. This one says demo, which actually gave me that screen capture that you saw previously. Okay, so we're gonna go into this. So to do so, we go over here to the arrow and now we can drill into it. All right, so now we're looking at just this data log 918, as it's called. Okay, so we've got a status window that popped up. Okay. And not a whole lot going on because we don't have the data log set up, so we can't do anything with it. So we got to go into configuration. All right, so we've got name. So let's start there. So excuse me, the first one we're going to start with, just do a basic data log, and we're going to do a manual start. So we're going to monitor, let's say 5 different things, kind of like I did in the previous example, and then we're going to do a manual start. We're going to decide when we're going to start the logging and when we're going to end the logging. All right, so let's click here and change the name, and by default it comes up with 3 lines. And so what should we call this? Let's call it 5 inputs. How about that? Works for me. All right, so now that's its name, and we can at least determine what it is by looking at the other ones later. All right, so we can type in a description if we want to really give some granularity to it and say, okay, we're gonna monitor this, 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 and this. There you go, you get a longer text field. How many samples do I want to capture? The default is 60, but let's give it the maximum. Range is 60 to 3600. So we're going to change that 3600. All right, so I've saved that. Sample method, sample at fixed time intervals. Okay, or I have the option to work off of a change in the value. So for this one, we're going to leave that the same. We're going to go every 2 seconds. That's my sample interval. Okay, now I've got trigger data signal. So I can change that if I want to actually add a signal, but we're not going to on this time. All right, so we're going to leave that one blank. Trigger data signal deadband, those two go together. We'll work with those later. And capture when true, we're going to work with that later. So we're going to leave these three because we're going to manually over here. Yeah, I can't get to it yet because I don't have any signals coming into it. We're going to manually start this capture. Okay, so that's our basic configuration. So now let's go get the data signals, the things that we're actually going to monitor, right? So that's over here. So we got to add some because I don't have any right now. So I click add data signal. Okay. And you can see one came up, and let's add another one. And let's add another one. Let's add another one and add another one. All right, so I've got 5 data signals now added, and it came up with those numbers again. All right, so we're gonna make those more valuable. So, but we don't know what it is, you're right. Yeah, we haven't assigned it. We haven't told it what field of value it's going to monitor. So I need to click that arrow. Okay, so let's assign the first one. And notice the pencils. Anything that's got a pencil means that you can edit it, something you can change. I is just information value, and those will populate once we've got something attributed to it. So let's find the field. So I'm going to click the pencil. Okay, now it comes up with this list of the many, many things that I could monitor. So we want to monitor, I'm going to monitor some AC input values, just like my previous example of the FXM-HP. So that's right here. So FXM-HP 120V-40V, that's what we want. So let's click there. Now it gives us a whole host of options within the FXM that we can monitor. So let's do the first one, AC input voltage. All right, scroll down, hit save. Okay, so that's there. And we can name it if we want, but we don't have to because this will carry over. I'll show you that, but we could name it. Okay, and it's already giving you the values then of where it's currently at. All right, so now let's jump back. So notice the menu breadcrumbs here. So right now we're at the variable. Let's jump back here to the main part and get to the rest of our data signals. And I'll very quickly then change these and set them up for more fields. So again, remember FXM-HP. Now let's look at AC output voltage. Get that one. All right, save that. Okay, so now we've got 2 of them. Let's go back. You can see here, starting to capture information, well, at least show it. We're not capturing it yet. We haven't started the logging. All right, so let's go grab another variable, grab the field. Here we go, FXM-HP again. Now let's go output current. All right, so now we got our 3 AC parameters. Okay, go back to my inputs again. I can see I'm showing the current values for those things. Let's grab the last 2. Let's do battery this time. Okay, so here we go, FXM-HP. And then here's battery information. Okay. All right, or we can go this way. So these are different, right? So I can see runtime, those kind of things. Actually, we want to go to this one here. I want to go battery voltage, keep it simple level. Hit that. And then let's get the last one. All right, so I'm going to go slower on this one again. So here we are. We've got our data signals added. We're going to add this one right here. So we're going to edit it. We're going to click that arrow. We need to set the field. The field is the value that we want to monitor. So I click that one, edit, FXM-HP. All right, and we did battery voltage. Now let's do battery current. There we go, and save. Okay, get back to here. Now we're back to our data log. So we're calling it 5 inputs because we got 5 inputs. I know that's a creative name, isn't it? All right, so here they all are. And it gives you a description. See, I could have named it. And what it would do is it would put the name right in front. It would say like AC input voltage, and then it would say numeric variable 748, whatever. So, but I just leave it the same because I can see what it is right here, and that's good enough for me. So now we're gonna go and start it. Now you can see the start button is active. So let's actually start capturing data. So I'm gonna click start capture, and it's telling me, yep, starting the data log capture. We're gonna scroll down, and now it's starting the preview chart. So here's our data coming in. Not too exciting, it's all flatlining, right? So let's create a little excitement. I'm going to adjust my variac here, which will shift the AC input voltage and the output voltage. So there you go. You can see things occurring now every 2 seconds as it's capturing that information. I'm going to drop it even lower. There we go, still capturing. I'm going to put it into inverter mode. So the AC input voltage is the gold again, and you can see it's dropping. I didn't take it all the way to 0. Let's take it all the way to 0. There we go. All right, and we can watch the other fields also react as they do in relation to what I've just done. So inverter's on, right? So now let's take the voltage back up. There we go. And we're going to crank it all the way up now. So I got my variac at its maximum, so I got about 145, 146 volts probably coming in. And I can also hover over it and get the live value. 143.7 currently coming in. Output voltage, 125.8. I can see what's going on here. Here's my output current. I've got just a little LED light plugged into it. And here's my battery current as the charger kicks on and then levels off. With that little bit of time I was in inverter mode, we can see the battery voltage start to climb a little bit then. So anyway, so it's just going to keep capturing data until it gets 3,600 samples, then it will stop. Or it will continue until I manually say stop. Now it's done capturing that data, all right? And then the graph freezes like this, and we'll sit there. And then we can start it again if we wanted to. All of a sudden say, yeah, let's start capturing all of that. So, okay, all right. And, okay, so we can then export this as well, right? Which we're gonna do a little bit later, okay? So that's the 5 inputs. So that's just using using these manual buttons to start the capture and stop it, okay? All right, so let's create another data log then, right? So here we are on our breadcrumbs. We're currently at the one we created. Let's go back to all of them. So here's our 5 inputs. Let's make another data log, all right? Okay, and on this one, scroll here a little farther. We're going to do this one different. We're going to change the trigger now. We're only going to monitor. Let's monitor AC input voltage and AC output voltage. A little bit simpler on the signals there, but let's trigger it on the AC input voltage. So it's not going to run all the time. Okay. So let's do that. So let's add a data log. There we go. Another one popped up. Okay, here we go. So now we're going to go into configuration. So let's name this one. So let's call it trigger on AC input maybe, or AC input voltage trigger on AC. A little bit lengthy, you probably wouldn't call it something like that, but just so we can visually see as we're learning this here, this one's going to trigger on AC, and we're going to call it AC input. Okay, so we know which one it is that we're looking at. Okay. All right, and okay, let's number samples. Let's change that then. I want that maximum again, so let's go 3,600. We're not going to monitor that many, but I'm guessing you're probably going to want to go 3,600 as well. All right, and then sampling method. Well, notice, here we go. Trigger data signal change, that's what we want, okay? Well, we've got to give it some data signals, okay? So let's do that. Let's add those, and then we're going to come back to this. So here we go. We're going to add a signal. Let's add another one. Okay, so I've got them here. Now we've got to actually go grab the field again. You guys are going to be experts at this before you know it. All right, so we're selecting the FXM-HP. Okay, there's other things I can grab here, but if I'm looking for input and output values to the FXM-HP, I want to be looking at this one here. So FXM-HP 120 volt - 48 volt, or whatever model FXM-HP you happen to have, 650, whatever, you're going to see those values here. So grab that. Okay, so let's grab AC input voltage, save it, go back to that, change our other one, so we can watch that one as the output. All right, here we go, AC output voltage. So you follow me? So we selected the FXM-HP. Next data signal is AC output voltage, and we're gonna save that. There it is. Okay, and we can see here we are. Here's our data signals now. All right, so now we're gonna go back to the configuration, and we're gonna say, okay, trigger data signal. What do we want it to trigger off of? Well, now look at our drop-down list. See, I didn't name it, so we don't know which one it is. So this is where the value comes in the naming. So let's go back and look at it. So I got options 121, 726, right? So what are my signals? Well, I can see that here. So let's make it easier on ourselves here. Let's actually name that, for this case, AC input voltage. Now we can be sure. Okay, go back here. All right, now let's look at our trigger data signal again. Use the drop down. There we go, right? So if we happen to know the variable was 121, we could have just selected it, been just fine. Or you can choose to name it and reduce confusion. AC input voltage, there we go. Click save, okay? Now we have to tell it what kind of deadband. So from where it is right now, how far off do we want it to go before we start triggering? So let's change that and let's set it to 5 volts. Here's my range, 0 to a large number of 9s. So let's go 5 and then hit save. Okay. All right, so we're going to start the capture. Okay. But notice what happened. It says it's sampling, but the count isn't climbing. In our previous example, I didn't point it out, but maybe you noticed, it just continually grabbed samples, right? Every 2 seconds, you were watching the chart, it was advancing along, but it just took one sample and then it stopped because nothing's changed. It's waiting for an input change, okay? So let's look at the graph. There it is there. So I'm gonna use the variac again, and I'm gonna change that voltage, okay? And if we look, we're currently at 143.5-ish. So I'm gonna drop it down some. Okay, dropped it down to 127, and then it grabbed one sample and stopped, okay? So as soon as it sees that voltage change, I set it for 5 volts. You could set it for whatever you'd like. It will then take a reading then. Doesn't matter which direction, 5 volts either way, it's going to grab another sample, okay? So that's how the trigger on a value works. You could have a trigger on other things as well. You know, if you had it monitoring a counter or something and its value went above a certain value and you picked, yeah, if it gets over 300 counts, start running this or something like that. So a lot of options there. And so it's just going to sit there until that voltage changes again. So each time it's going to grab another sample. So that's how it works with the deadband and trigger on data signal. All right. Okay. Next, let's add another data log then. So let's stop that one. Stopping the capture. Back to data logs. All right, so here's our first 2. Let's add one more. Okay, so I just clicked it, added it, another generic name. Let's go edit that one. All right, so this one, I'm gonna have it actually monitor a custom data statement, which is what I'm gonna teach you all about in 2 weeks, but I've already got this simple equation written. I'm not going to get into that today, but just know I'm going to show you just what the equation is, simply as to logically what we're going to do here. So I want it to capture data when a certain formula is true. All right, so let's get in there. So we're going to call this one then. Let's call this AC, there we go, AC input. And how about we just go output? Let's go less than 110 or greater than 130. These are the things I've got the formula written to monitor. Anytime the voltage gets less than 110 or greater than 130, do something. All right, so that's what we're going to call it. Okay, number of samples, change that to 3600. All right, sampling method, that all stays the same. I want it to be at 2 seconds, but here's what changes. Capture when true. I want it to capture when my formula, my custom data equation is true. So now I'm gonna go in there and I'm gonna find it. So here it is. This is the one I wrote. When the AC input is less than 110 or greater than 130, this equation becomes true. And so that's the one we're gonna grab. Okay, result as Boolean, so that means it's coming in as true or false. Okay, we're going to click save. All right. But we've got to tell it what to monitor. So let's give it some data. So let's add a couple data signals. Okay, so let's grab again the AC input voltage. All right. And let's go alter the other one. AC output voltage. I just picked those because that's common things that you're likely going to want to monitor. All right. So we've got our two data signals, AC input, AC output. Okay. And then this is what we're calling it. We're going to sample up to 3,600 samples, and we're going to sample when this happens to be true. All right. And no preview chart because we don't have it running yet. So let's start the capture. Okay. So starting the data log capture. And notice the value now, it's waiting. It's waiting for this value, this formula to be true, and then it's going to start sampling, okay? So we can watch then, here's our AC input voltage. So I'm going to then use the variac again, and I'm going to go less than 110. And here we go. We're going to start sampling then every 2 seconds. And it's going to continue doing that until it runs out of samples, or if the AC input voltage gets in between that window again of 110 and 130. So it's just going to continually grab. So let's go a little bit lower. All right, still true because we're less than 110. All right, and I'm going to crank it up again to be in between, and then it'll stop. So here we are, 119.5 volts, and now it stopped because that logic statement is now false. I'm now in between 110 and 130. So what does that really mean? What are these numbers I picked, 110, 130? Line is right in between 110 and 130. So that means I'm in buck, or I'm in boost modes, or I'm in inverter mode if I'm outside of this region. So anything that's not line mode is what I'm capturing here. That's why I picked those numbers. So let's go up now. And I've got 100 and what do we got going here? 133, 134 volts going in. So now we're going to start capturing data again. And it's just going to keep running, right? So let's turn it all the way up. 140 some volts going in. Okay, it's just going to keep capturing data. And we can see what's happening with our AC input and output. So I got 144 coming in. Output is 126. That's why we have buck and boost, because it regulates that AC voltage to a safe value for our equipment. Okay, and then turn it back here to the middle. And now we're in between at 124 volts, and it now stops sampling because now the logic equation is false again. So using this one, I like this one because it's a great way to capture anytime you're not in line mode. It's just going to capture that information for you, and then you'll have it. Granted, it only goes up to 3,600 samples, so if it depends on how often you would be in those modes. Some locations would be there all the time because the voltage is too low or too high based on the transformer, or maybe it's not very often at all. So every location would be different. All right. Okay, so that's our 3 methods of doing that. Right. So, but what do we do with that data, right? So, for example, export it. Okay. So that would be the next logical step, would be to export this to a CSV file and come up with some type of graph like this that you can actually then see it, create reports, whatever you might want to do. Okay. So let's export it to a spreadsheet, and I'll show you how to manipulate that and how to work with that a little bit because it can be a little bit tricky because of the way the data is out there. So let's jump back again. All right, so here we go. So we've got a lot of data logs here, right? So let's take a look at our first one, the 5 inputs. Okay, so let's go there. Okay, we've already got data there, and we can export it to CSV file. So I'm going to click that, and it just very then quickly downloaded it because the file's not, no, it's still, yeah, it's there. All right, so let's open it up. I'm going to click on that. Here we go. Here's our data. So let me zoom in on that so you can see that better. All right. So it comes in with a timestamp, time date stamp, and then it gives us all those different fields. Okay. So let's open that up a little bit. Okay, there we go. We can see the date and the timestamp. This is a custom field as you bring it into the spreadsheet. Notice it's showing you hours and minutes, but not showing you seconds. The seconds are actually there. It's just that the field's not configured properly to show you the seconds, but they're actually there. All right, then the next ones over are the actual field values. So if I double click on them, you can see our very long names like so. Okay, so what I would do is I would go into this just like you've got it here. And one of the things I would do, I would change the name, because notice it's got FXM-HP 120V-48V, blah, 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 really long, right? We don't care about that. What we care about is AC input voltage. So I'm gonna put my cursor just to the left of that. Hopefully you can see that. And I'm gonna backspace over the rest, hit tab, get to the next field. And I'm gonna do that to each of them, because otherwise we're gonna end up with that really long name when we go to our chart, which is kind of obnoxious, okay? So what we just need to know what the actual value is that we're looking at. So I'm backing up, tabbing to the next one. There's battery current. There we go. Okay, so now I have them all renamed to something more valuable. Okay, now we've got our data. All right, so how do you make a chart with this? Well, it makes it pretty easy. You just go over here to Insert. Okay, and then we go over here to Recommended Charts. And then this pops up. Let's see if you can, no, I can't zoom in on that. Notice what happens. So what it does when you click on recommended charts, it gives you a sample lookout so you can see what your data would look like. It's already kind of grabbed your table and given you a little preview. Notice what our data looks like. It's a straight line, right? There's something going wrong, okay? The reason it's doing that is because of the way that it's interpreting our date timestamp. It's having trouble with that. There's an artifact in there that you can't see, but this spreadsheet does, right? So we need to get rid of that artifact. So here's how you're gonna do it, all right? So we're gonna click the B column. I'm gonna right click on B, okay? And I'm gonna go insert. I'm gonna give myself another column next to it. Why do I wanna do that? Because we're gonna convert this data here into something that does not have an artifact. And we're gonna use a formula to do so, all right? So to make it easy, I've already done the formulas over here, and this one's quite simple. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna convert that to text, and you're gonna give it a certain format. You're gonna say, okay, I want it to be month, month, day, day, and then 4-digit year, all right? And then I want my time to be hour, hour, minute, minute, second, second, so we can actually see our seconds now. So I'm gonna copy that. Okay, so what it is, it equals text. So what I'm saying in this formula is go to cell A2, B2, whatever it happens to be, and then apply this formula. So we're going to take it in its rudimentary form here. So copy that. All right, let's get back to the spreadsheet. Okay, I'm going to put it here, but notice I got to pay attention to what I did, because the formula says A2. Well, I really want to look at B2, right? So change that. I'm sorry, A2, no, that was correct. All right, yeah, A2. So 2, not A, yeah. So column A is what it's looking at, and then it's gonna put it here, and it's gonna put it in this format. So I'm gonna hit enter now. All right, there it is. You can see now I've got my seconds, and we're good to go. Now I want all of them to do that. So instead of copying all of that, all I have to do is on the bottom of this rectangle, you see this little green square there, and I get a plus sign, double click on that, and then it fills all the way down. Okay, grabbed them all. And so now we can see all of them are there. All right, now that it's got them all selected, I want to get rid of that formula and just come up with the data. So I'm going to use, you could right click and go copy, or you could use the shortcut key, which would be Control C. All right, and then I'm going to go to the home screen and do paste values, which is V. But strangely, I find that Control V, which is the shortcut, is not always the same as the paste V. You think it would be because it shows a shortcut key, but that doesn't always work out that way. All right, so now I've just got the actual number the way we want it. Okay, we want time not to be there because we're gonna actually get rid of that column. So I'm gonna drag that over here. That's now time. And I'm gonna delete that column because now we have our good data, right? But I had to copy it and paste it, or else once I deleted that column, my values go away because it was referencing column A. Okay, so that's why I copied and pasted it in. Okay, formula's gone, I just have the values. Okay, now we've got our data again. It looks the same to us, except for now we can see the seconds. But as far as looking at the chart, it's going to be greatly different. So now I can go recommended charts. Now look at that. It's got all of our data right there. So I'm going to click that and go OK. Here we go. We just created then the chart. Okay, and then you can go in and do all kinds of things with it. So for example, the way it's got this angled like this, we can actually go then to the home and we can change the angle and make our text rotate text up. Looks like so, a little bit easier to read. We can go in and we can, make it all bold. So, I mean, you can go in through and change all the different things, change the title, whatever you want to do. You can alter this chart. So I'm playing with this program. So anyway, that's how you get to the chart once you've got that raw data. Okay, and then you can go into actually the chart design then and give yourself all different types of charts depending on how you want it to look. Okay. Lots of fancy things you can do with charts. Get your presentation going. But now we can see the data, right? Just like we had on the screen on the web page. Now you've got it and you can show it however you want to show it. Okay. Another thing I wanted to show you is what if, so let's move this off my screen. What if we wanted to know, it's just something you can add, it doesn't add value to the chart, but what if you wanted to know the mode of the UPS? I mean, that's something else you could add to this. So let's go UPS mode. Okay, there we go. Because you can figure that out. If you go into our manual, actually, we'll tell you the transfer points. And then you can write an equation to actually monitor then the AC input voltage to tell you what mode the UPS was in. And so I've done that already. Which looks like this. So it's a bunch of if-then statements, essentially, if-and statements, and is looking for these values based on that. So I've copied that. All right, now we're going to paste that in right here. And look, magically it knew what mode it's in. I'm going to double click this here, and we can now see the mode of the UPS if we wanted to know that. So if you want that formula, just reach out to me or distributor. I'll get that to you. Easy to do, or you can come up with it on your own if you're familiar with formulas in here, because the values are, like I said, are in the manual. But that's another nice way to look at it. And go, oh yeah, what mode was I in? Oh yeah, buck, line, inverter mode. It's all there. Makes it easy for you. Okay. All right, and so we could do this then for each of the different data logs that we created. So if we wanted to, we could go back to any of the others. So trigger on AC input, or anytime we were out, let's look at that one. So I'm going to export again. I'm going to do this one more time, just because I know that was a lot of information if you're not familiar with doing those kind of things in spreadsheets. So let's grab that data. So I'm going to export it again. There it is. Open it up. Going to create a new spreadsheet. Here's our data again. I'm going to zoom in because it always comes in at 100%. Okay, so here we are starting fresh again one more time. Double click that so you can see we don't have our seconds. And remember, there's an artifact in that time date stamp, so we want to get rid of that. We also want to change our name because it's got, the FXM-HP. We don't care about that. We just care that it's AC input voltage. So I'm going to back that up. Tab over to the next one, change that name by backing up. Tab, now we've got those named the way we want. Double click on them to widen it out so you can see AC input voltage, AC output voltage, there's our values. Okay. And then let's fix this. So to do that, remember I click on the column, right click, insert. So now I've got my extra column now, okay? And then we're gonna put that formula in, okay? So I'm going to go back over here and it's the first one. So equals text. Text says, I want you to go to this cell and convert whatever's in there to this format. That's what that means. So go to cell A2 and I want you to take that data and make it look like this. All right. So we're going to copy that. Get to the spreadsheet. Paste that in. Control V, paste it in. And here we are with the right time, with the full seconds, without any artifact, right? So I've got that cell selected, lower right corner, hover till I see the plus sign, double click, it fills it all the way down. It's called autofill, right? Okay, now that it's selected, I've got everything selected exactly where I want. You can do Control C or right click and go copy. Okay, now it's gonna get the zigzag going around saying, yep, I've got that. And then I'm gonna do paste, values, and now the formula's gone, but I've retained my information. Okay. Then we're gonna take the time label, drag that over here, click on column A, right click, go delete, and now we're ready to make that table again. So then go insert, recommended charts, pick the one I want, click OK. Then here we are again with our data. And if we don't like these being diagonal, because it makes it kind of hard to read, go back to your home, go here, look for the labels there on the characters, click down, go rotate text up, and now we can see it that way. And then we can drag this out and resize things and see all the values that we want. And now we can see, now we've got a comparison of our AC input and AC output. So blue is our AC input. And then the, I guess that's orangish color is the AC output, right? And if we want, we can change the way that the chart looks by going to chart design and then hovering over any other type that we want. If we want actual point values, things like that. So anyway, little grids there to make it easier to line up the values. Okay, so that's how what you do with the export then. Take it into your spreadsheet program, apply the formulas, and then off you go. All right. Okay, so that's pretty much it on Datalogs. I mean, there's a fair amount there. I went through it. I created 3 samples on purpose because I wanted you to see repeatedly how I did things. Didn't want to go through too fast, and if I did, I wanted to cover it again to make sure that you got it. The application note that we wrote on this covers a lot of that. Doesn't cover all the spreadsheet stuff. That's not in there. That's something I've just added recently, but thought that would add value. So anyway, so that's what we've got going there. So we've got more coming up. This is number 3 out of 5. So we've got 2 more coming up for the education series. The next one in 2 weeks, then on June 3rd, same time, will be on custom data and user alarm. So that little equation that we used here today, less than on the AC input of less than 110, greater than 130. I'm going to show you how to write those type of equations, what it takes to do so. It's not hard. We're going to write some. We're going to write a couple of them, and then we'll put them to use and watch them work. Okay, and then we'll also talk about user alarms and then how to tweak them, how to create them on your own. And then, so a month from now, on June 17th, then we'll be going to the last one, which will be the dry contact relays, how to do all the programming on those. Okay. All right. So there we go. Humphrey, have any questions?
Yes, actually, we don't have a lot of questions today. I blame it on myself because of my little glitch earlier. So some people probably still like shocked what happened, everything. But majority of the question actually can be summarized in one big question: is that you mentioned quite a few formulas in your webinar. Is where can they find these formula? Will they find it in the manual, or you can send them out, and how to get access to them?
Yeah, we can send that out to the list. Yeah, I guess you're not going to find that in the manual. I spend a lot of time in these spreadsheet programs creating formulas, so you will find the transfer points are in our manual. So you could write your own if you're familiar with writing formulas. But if not, that's fine. We'll put that together, make a note of that. We can send it out to the attendee list. So.
Yeah, let's do that. And then the other questions I probably can help answer as well, but is where can they find the application notes? Because I think we've been holding for the webinar to happen before we post them. So I guess we will be posting the application notes on our resource section on alpha.ca.
That's right. Yeah, they'll be up on our website coming up soon, I believe.
Yeah, I will. I think I have most of them, if not all of them, and then we'll just get them out next week so everybody can download there. Otherwise, no, I think though that basically covers all the question because most people are more concerning about the formulas. Sincerely apologize for the glitch earlier. It's one time that I didn't actively look at the question immediately. That was the time that I forgot to hit the broadcast button. So that was my fault completely.
Yeah, I thought I just missed it, that I wasn't in the room and missed the broadcast message. I was like, oh, maybe he did it already. So I should have asked.
Yes, no. It
Sorry
was
about that, everyone.
Yeah, so thank you so much, and I hope to see you all in 2 weeks.
All right, make it a great day, everybody. Take care.
All right, bye bye.
Bye-bye.